ability, increased domestic ammunition production, additional logistics utility vehicles, light utility vehicles, and armored vehicles. Il est temps pour le Canada de tracer sa propre voie, de s'affirmer sur la scène internationale. Il est temps de défendre nos valeurs avec ceux qui les partagent. Il est temps de partager avec le monde une approche et une vision distincte. As the world grows more dangerous, we will secure Canada. And through these efforts, we will also create tens of thousands of high-paying jobs right here at home. Canada will lead, with the strongest economy in the G7 and a strong, secure, and sovereign future for all Canadians and for all time. Thank you very much. Merci, and I'll now be pleased to take your questions.
Nous allons maintenant passer à cette conférence de presse. We'll now begin the press conference. Nous commencerons avec une question et une relance. We'll begin with one question and one follow-up. Première question, first question.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister Carney. John Benavali Rao with CTV National News. You're moving up the NATO spending target in a way that you didn't talk about during the election campaign. How much of this is going to be creative accounting, shall we say, to get to the target you need ahead of this NATO meeting at the end of the month?
Thank you for the question. None of it is going to be creative accounting. Look, I think what you're seeing here is a reflection of several factors. One, the good work that's been done by Department of National Defence, the Canadian Armed Forces in advance during this period. Let's face it, where there were election campaigns and the focus was only on the immediate as opposed to moving forward. That's the first thing. The second is a full recognition by Canada's new government of the fundamental importance of providing the basics, the foundations, proper pay, proper benefits, proper housing, munitions, equipment, the basics are there. But then moving off from that to begin to build these critical capabilities. And I would say one other thing, and I'll hand back for your follow-up, which is that we're also recognizing that even during the election campaign from the start of the year, the world shifting, the nature of our alliances changing, the expectations within those alliances, but also our expectation for what we need to do to protect Canada have shifted. And when it's something as fundamental as defense of Canadian interests, you need to act. And that's why we're pulling things forward.
There's still a massive procurement problem for the Canadian military. How do you intend to fix that with this announcement? Yeah,
so part of this announcement, and it's an incredibly important question, if I can just expand on it for a moment, which is there's several aspects of procurement issues. The first is the speed with which, there's announcements, there's money allocated, but that money doesn't get spent, it lapses in the parlance, and that means that the women and men of the armed forces don't have the equipment they need. We can't deploy as we need to. Secondly, there's an issue about predictability of the spend. It's very hard for our armed forces, Department of National Defence and their support, to plan 3, 5, 10 years out. They need to be able to do that. So we need to be more consistent. And the third element of procurement is around how do we procure in a smart way. And that starts with value for money. Every taxpayer dollar is precious. But it's also being smart about having the maximum economic impact here in Canada. And so what you're seeing with the announcement today is greater predictability, commitment to the scale of investment, predictability about the types of capacities we're going to be building. And then thirdly and importantly, a structural change, which we've mentioned before, but we're emphasizing, is that we will create a new defense procurement agency. We're in the process of doing that. And that agency will have various abilities for various reasons. We can discuss it at another juncture in more detail, where they can move more quickly in making procurement decisions. They will have that focus on building Canadian capacity at the same time. And so they'll help solve these very real issues that you're raising.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, Mr. Carney. Jacob Lawrence with Bloomberg News. I just wanted to ask again on how this will be paid for. Are you looking at taxes or program cuts, additional debt?
So we, one of the things we've said from the start in recent months is there's a few big decisions in the very near term for the government. Some of them don't cost, or cost very little, which, for example, the One Canadian Economy bill, which is now before the House, will have a huge impact in terms of growth in this economy and bringing the country together. Others have a more significant impact, and you just mentioned two. Today's announcement and this focus on meeting our own responsibilities to protect Canadians, but also our NATO obligations at the same time. This decision that we're announcing today and the associated summit at NATO towards the end of this month, those are significant events from a budget perspective, and we wanted to get to a point where we had addressed those. And then secondly, as you just referenced, we have just begun the process to look for savings in government, to improve government productivity, to reallocate spending across government. We're just, last point, and so getting greater traction on that and clarity on the scale of that will be important for the budget. Last 2 points. Budget will be delivered in the early fall. The Minister of Finance will be more precise in due course. But we just cut taxes. We're not raising taxes. We just cut taxes. 22 million Canadians are getting a tax cut July 1st. Very pleased to see all-party support of that in the House. A good sign of parliamentarians coming together to help Canadians during the affordability crisis. Thank you.
And just on fiscal matters, are you still expecting the deficit for this year to be at $62 billion?
Well, look, the deficit, we'll give an update of the outlook for the deficit in due course. That will take into account the economic conditions, decisions such as today, progress we're making on spending reductions as well. So today's not the day for a fiscal update. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Next question.
Hi, this is Vipal Manga from the Wall Street Journal. How does this initiative play into Canada's hopes for a new economic and defense framework with the United States?
Well, I think what it starts with is our responsibilities to Canadians, and within the context of, well, first and foremost, it's about protecting Canadians, us taking our responsibilities in the context of a United States that is providing a lower degree of collective security. Understandable, very clear, understandable. So we're stepping up. It's also understandable, quite frankly, because the threat landscape, unfortunately, for this country has increased with both the policies of some countries, with non-state and terrorist actors, but also technology and the ability to. Our advantages of geography have been reduced, I can put it that way. So first and foremost, we're doing this for us. Relatedly, we're doing it as a strong NATO partner. We're a firm believer in NATO, and we're standing shoulder to shoulder with our NATO allies. We'll continue to do so. And of course, the United States is a fundamental ally of the country. So I think it's very complementary to the process of developing that new economic and security partnership with the Americans.
Presumably, some amount of these monies will go towards U.S. Companies and defense contractors. Does that help in your negotiations with the U.S. at all?
Well, we are certainly in the top 20 clients, if I can put it that way, of the United States defense industry. And we are significantly increasing our defense spend. So it's material. We are material. And of course, there are many complementarities between our expertise, including the women and men of the Canadian Armed Forces, but also technical expertise. A complementarity which will only increase with what we're announcing today. I'll give you an example. Canada is absolutely one of the world's leaders in cyber and AI. There is a big focus in this defense package on developing our cyber and AI capacities, working in partnership. We're here in Toronto. We're a few blocks away from the Vector Institute, for example, and Creative Destruction Labs. So building on those partnerships can be complementary to our relationship with the U.S. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, Prime Minister. Jeff Gray, Globe and Mail. I wanted to ask you about remarks you made this morning. You mentioned the word sacrifice. There's a debate going in Europe about this rearming that's underway, and there's a lot of talk about the effect that's going to have on social assistance and healthcare and so on. You did use that word today. Are Canadians going to have to sacrifice something, future healthcare increases or something to pay for in the long term, not just 2%, 3%, 5% more spending on the military?
Well, I think the first thing is that it underscores, and I also made this, thanks for paying attention to the remarks this morning, but also made this point right at the outset, is there's no true security without economic strength. And this is true for defense and security. It's true for our social programs as well. We can't redistribute what we don't have. And so the importance, and that's why this government is so laser focused on building the strongest economy in the G7. So we can not just maintain, but enhance, if possible, our social model, our social framework, support each other. Some of these sacrifices will come, I think, in terms of, I'm going to give you an odd answer to this, but I believe this, which is it's going to require a degree of cooperation, consensus, a degree of speed that's going to be needed, both for the investments, nation-building investments that we're looking to move forward, as well as to build these defense capacity. And if I can just loop back to the earlier question about defense procurement, it's part of the reason why we are changing our procurement model.
I'll go back to the speech then. Another remark you made talking about Canada's need to focus on Canada, to work with Europe, to maybe disentangle ourselves a little bit from the United States. Isn't it also, it's inevitable that our defense structure is going to be completely integrated with the United States? There's no way to get around that.
Well, I would, you had me until you said completely. No, it's not inevitable. I would change from that line. We are very close and complementary defense partners with the United States. That will continue in many respects. I'll give you the example of ballistic missile defense in its broadest sense. NORAD as a component of the broader. It makes, there are many, many reasons for very close, if not enhanced, cooperation between Canada and the United States. And we are working intensively on the best way to do that. But there are other areas, and it can be with respect to certain elements of materiel, technologies across any element of the forces, including AI, cyber elements, where we are going to look to diversify. We're going to do more ourselves. We're going to look to diversify our partners. As you saw, I mentioned in the speech, it isn't news, but we are in close discussions with our European partners to join Rearm Europe. That will be an element of diversification. That's just smart. It's better to be diversified. It's better to have options. It's better to have different supply chains and broader partners. And of course, what we're talking about, last point, is diversifying with our closest allies. Right? These are our closest allies in Europe that we diversify with, and it will be to the benefit of the Canadian people. Thank you.
Next question.
Hello, Prime Minister. Nathaniel Dove with Global News. You said during the campaign with regards to national defense, you don't start with a percentage of GDP or what can be an arbitrary figure when it comes to national defense. Can you explain why you changed your position so that now we are hitting 2% much faster than you originally said?
Well, actually, it is the same position. It's looking at all of the elements on the ground, starting with the very basic elements of the foundations of the Canadian forces. Pay, the lodging, munitions. I'm being simple, but I could give you a very large, just the day in, day out experience, both of the individuals, the support they have, the support our veterans have, but as well the equipment that they have on in protecting us on the battlefield. We see the strains, for example, with respect to the relatively limited operational readiness of some of our aircraft broadly speaking, with respect to all that's being called on our military right now, including with the fires. And I want to full credit to the two individuals and the people they represent behind me for the full support they have given in massive evacuations and timely evacuations working with the provinces. But we need to build up that capacity, and seeing that, knowing that, and knowing we can act on it makes sense to act now. And then the second thing is the scale of the what I would call the enhancing our military capabilities across cyber, AI, critical minerals, other elements of that. There is an immediate need or immediate opportunity now. It happens that puts us in a position where we're not just at 2, we're above 2, probably rounded to 2.1% of GDP, okay, for what it's worth. Last thing, if I can say, is that I did make the point about, within the context of a broader negotiation within NATO, about longer-term targets, and that's something that's under discussion, is that we're going to be guided by what's necessary. Again, we're going to keep the same principle, not to satisfy, all due respect to them, NATO accountants, some magic number. It is about the results.
So speaking of the NATO accountants, you said that this morning as well. Mark Rutte, I think on Wednesday last week, NATO Secretary General said that we can forget about keeping ourselves safe with 2%, and allies now are discussing 5% overall of GDP spending, 3.5% directly towards defense. When will Canada meet those new numbers? And if not, what message does that send to our allies when we are now, I suppose, meeting 2%?
Well, first, we are meeting 2%, and that is the NATO target as it is today. Secondly, as you just said, NATO allies will be discussing what, in addition, and there will be, we can see from our own needs, our own requirements over the medium term, that we will need to spend more, in our judgment, more relative to GDP. So we'll have discussions about how much that more is and what's the horizon over which to have those bigger numbers. And the Minister of National Defense was just at NATO in the last few days and had some of those discussions. But it'll be about results. And I'll make one final point here, which is, importantly, a component of that increased spending is what's called a defense industrial pledge. 1.5 percentage points of GDP that's spent on everything from resilience through to really foundational elements of defense, critical minerals, and it could include things like AI, quantum, other elements. We feel very confident that we are in the zone of already meeting that requirement. We also have a strategy, and look, we've got the signalers here, we've got expertise literally in the room. We have a strategy that's looking to really build on those elements anyways. So I think we're at 2. That extra 1.5, in that case, defense industrial pledge, is something we feel very comfortable about, both the need and our ability to deliver on that. When you move beyond that, it'll be a discussion, and it's this discussion about results. Defense is it literally is to keep our citizens secure, and we'll do what's needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question.
Hey, Barbara with iPolitics. So this Friday, you signaled desire to re-engage with China to improve market access for Canadian agricultural producers. And our outlet had an interview with the Taiwanese ambassador recently. He warned against cozying up to Beijing because of its tendency to use trade as a political weapon. Why are you putting any trust in China at this time?
Well, the first thing is, China is the second largest economy in the world. It is our second largest trading partner, and we have not had engagement with them on matters related to trade. The last time our formal trade mechanism met was, I believe it was 2018, 2019, our so-called JETC had met. So, we're starting from a pretty low base here. Secondly, the real damage has been done to our agricultural sector, our fisheries, because of Chinese tariffs. We think they're unjustified. We need to engage to have those discussions with them. So there are degrees of relationships. This is a recalibration of the relationship.
Thank you. I want to ask on housing as well. So housing groups have been calling on your government to extend the first-time home buyers GST rebate to all new home buyers to help accelerate housing construction. Premier Ford also said that he talked to you recently about that. Is this something you were considering?
Well, I'd put it this way. We're talking about first-time home buyers and a full GST rebate on homes up to $1 million. And still a substantial, it's a sliding scale, up to $1.5 million. What we're looking to is to help younger Canadians getting their first home and others getting their first home. When you move beyond $1.5 million, we're in a different calculus. I mean, we're in Toronto, but I know the housing market here, it's expensive, but we are talking about first-time home buyers, grading affordability for them, $50,000 maximum off the price of the home, which seems appropriate. And if I can go back to a very earlier question, which alluded to the word sacrifice, I'm not sure it's a sacrifice, but at some point, those types of supports and mechanisms need to be targeted. And in a world where it's a dangerous world, we need to invest in our military. Maybe providing a tax break for a $2 or $3 million home is not our top priority.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last question.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. Jamie Strachan with CBC. Obviously, we're talking about a lot of money here, over $9 billion. Are you confident that DND has the capacity to actually spend it?
Well, thank you, Jamie. That's one of the issues. It's been a historic issue. It's one that we looked at closely in terms of designing the package of measures here. Some of it is very spendable, if I can put it that way, in the short term, going directly to personnel as an example, directly to munitions, places where there's capacity. Some will be in partnership with our allies, including Ukraine, where, again, a very high degree of confidence there. And there's going to be a great focus on ensuring that this money is as effectively used as possible. Where I'd flag is in those cutting-edge areas around building our cyber capacity, AI capacities, and others. We actually have good programs. We have great opportunities to do those, but they're, in effect, when I say good programs, we have good opportunities, maybe is a better way to put it. And we have great companies that are available for that. But we'll have to do a bit of work to move those out, but we fully intend to do that. And if I can just use your question again to reemphasize, this reform we're making to the Defense Procurement Agency, which will not affect, to be clear, the very short-term spending, but will affect medium-term spending. The motivation of your question is one of the reasons why we're doing that.
And just a question about
vers la fin, puis-je l'autre question, et puis c'est nécessaire maintenant ou en ce qui concerne la OK, d'accord. En français, je vais traduire. I'm going to translate for Madam. Oui. En ce qui concerne l'approvisionnement et la capacité du département de la Défense de mettre en œuvre ce montant de l'argent, c'est une bonne question. La réponse est la plupart des dépenses sont à peu près immédiates. Ce sont des salaires. Ce sont pour des hommes et des femmes de la force canadienne. C'est pour des munitions. Le matériel et on peut dépenser presque immédiatement. Mais ce qui est un peu plus difficile, peut-être, ce sont les investissements dans l'intelligence artificielle, le cyber et le quantum, tout cela. Mais on verra. Et c'est une des raisons pour lesquelles nous sommes en train de créer une nouvelle département d'approvisionnement pour le ministère des Défenses, pour les dépenses.
And just a quick follow, just in terms of the money in the here and now and today, how does it make more submarines seaworthy, more land vehicles landworthy today?
Some of it easier on the land vehicles. Literally, when you're, don't have the parts and you need to do the repair. I mean, we're in that territory in some of the cases. That's c'est un peu gênant to have to say that, but that's true. Like just getting to the heart of the problem today. In terms of, broader procurement, the time horizon is longer than this. But what we're signaling, and maybe I can use this just to in the bigger picture. This is not about getting to 2% full stop. It's about defending Canada. Our ability to defend Canada is not at a point in time. It's going to require a sustained investment. And as I said in my remarks this morning, we're getting to this level with this $9.3 billion, but we expect a further acceleration of spending. We're going to we're sharpened our pencils, we're going to go through it, we're going to do it in the best way possible, but we think that this proportion of spending relative to GDP is going to go up somewhat in order to protect. Now, that's important because it'll protect Canadians, but it's also important to send a very clear signal to our suppliers, particularly the ones here in Canada, and it's important, and I think it's the right place to finish, to send a very clear signal to the men and women who are protecting us, that we're going to be there for them, and that there are great careers in the Canadian Forces, and that those careers are going to build over time. Thank you. La dernière partie, au fond, ce qui est fondamental, c'est d'avoir un engagement du gouvernement du Canada de dépenser assez afin d'avoir des forces canadiennes qui protègent les Canadiens et les Canadiennes. Et on ne peut pas faire avec un montant d'argent, n'importe quel montant d'argent dans une année. Alors, il y aura maintenant un trajet des dépenses du gouvernement qui vont être plus larges pendant les années prochaines. Et nous rendons une signe aux partenaires domestiques dans l'industrie de défense. C'est une grande industrie, mais l'industrie qui implique la défense de notre pays. Et surtout pour les hommes et des femmes des forces canadiennes. Il y a des bonnes carrières ici. Ils et elles nous protègent et nous allons fournir les montants et la matériel qui seront nécessaires de protéger les Canadiens et Canadiennes. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Ceci met fin à la conférence de presse d'aujourd'hui. Thank you. This concludes today's press conference.